with exponential talks, one of the things we would do is select people from the audience and invite them over just to sort of share some of their thoughts and ideas. Today we have Dr. Nadine, as I explained. She's a PhD in AI and machine learning professor. And Nadine, you're good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. So, you're all data, aren't you? Data.
Absolutely.
And you throw an algorithm in there and a bit of a computer and you're a happy bunny, right?
In a nutshell.
Tell us what inspires you to be a data geek.
All right. No going easy on me, right?
No going easy. I just thought I'd ask a good question. No.
So, let me just give you a little bit of a background on me, because I guess it goes into the whole story.
Sure.
So we talked earlier on about education, about the education system. So I was a model student. I was a straight A student throughout my entire education life. I've never given my parents any trouble. I was very geeky, very nerd in that sense.
Yeah.
And I started my career as an electrical engineer. So I was not in the field of data. I was not in the field of computer science. I stumbled upon the field of artificial intelligence by mistake as I was working on my final year project as an undergrad student when I was trying to build an autonomous robot that would detect underground mines. And then part of the problem that I was trying to solve is that I had a camera on board, and I wanted the camera to be able to smartly pick up the areas of interest and be able to take actions and activate some detectors automatically. So, and then I was like, okay, this is a really complex problem, and I didn't even know how complex the problem was until I started looking more into what kind of solutions are there available for these kind of problems, and I couldn't find any. And then I stumbled upon the field of machine learning and neural networks and all of these things. And later on, when I went for my graduate studies and I joined graduate school, I was very curious about the field, and I thought, okay, I know nothing about it basically, but I'm just gonna jump into it. And that's how I started into that field. So as I learned more about the essentials of it and the core components of it, and at the same time as the whole digitization and transformation era started, where everything became digital, I started more and more to realize how important data is and what it means to have data, what kind of insights you can get out of data. And that's where I started being more and more curious about how do I build ways to make sense of these numbers, because computers are only good at crunching numbers. Us as humans are the ones who can actually put the layer of intelligence on
So
it.
they're stupid and we're smart.
Yes.
Okay. One of the phrases that I use about data, which I heard at an event recently, it's that one source of truth that you find to give the real answer. So when you are developing your business and so on, is that one of the things you have in your head, that what's my source of clarity and truth?
So let's make a difference between what is reality, especially in business, and what's kind of theory, right? We talk about one sort of truth. We talk about the beauty of data, the potential of data, the power of data. And we've all seen these movies and read these books and science fiction and documentaries about how much data can do and how it can transform every single business. And that is fair and true in a certain sense, to a certain extent. Now, when we talk about the real thing, when we talk about the day-to-day activities, when we talk about businesses, at the end of the day, anything within a business context, anything that does not lead to insights, anything that does not lead to something being improved, to a process being automated or optimized, doesn't have room to flourish or grow within a business. It stays as an R&D project on the edge of an academic institution or within a certain small lab within one of these big industries or big tech giants who have the ability to spend millions and billions of dollars on small R&D projects in the hope that one of them will lead to something. Now, within businesses, and unfortunately this is something that modern businesses are not aware of, there is a lot of data that is unfortunately sitting in different silos. And the trend that we see when we work with our customers within my professional life, when I work with some sort of the startups that I've advised throughout my career, what I see is that there's a lot of data that is sitting in silos, and more importantly, these businesses are not aware of what they can get out of it, and before they even understand what this, they even don't know what to do with that data. So, and that's where the disconnect happens. So I think for any business who is looking into AI and into looking into data, into the importance of data, the number one question that I would say they should ask themselves is, what is your pain point? What is the process that is causing you to waste time, to waste resources? What is the number one process that you're looking to automate, to optimize, to make better, and then start from there and build your data strategy from there?
Couple of questions were very close to my heart on the kind of business, and I know you and I have some serious conversations on this, and that is the whole issue around ethics. And you know, AI is not racist or sexist or biased, anything. We are. And we are the ones that puts that kind of crap inside machines and learning systems and machine learning. What do you do as a as a teacher, as a business leader, in terms of making sure that everything is ethical and not just about making money?
Well, that is a difficult question, because as I said, and as you mentioned before, the three main components of AI are data, computing power, and then algorithms. Now, data is the fuel. Right? If you imagine AI is the rocket that's going to take you to the moon, data is your fuel. Without data, you can't have any insights. And even if you go into the out-of-the-box solutions that are out there, they all need data that are specific to your use case to produce anything that is meaningful. Now, on the subject of ethics and bias, let's make it also another differentiation between what computers produce and what we produce as humans. Because at the end of the day, when computers are observing our behavior as a human and trying to replicate what we do, because at the end of the day, the power of artificial intelligence or the level of artificial intelligence is measured against us as human beings. The highest level of intelligence that the computer can exhibit is that is compared to human intelligence. So that concept known as, in the technology world, as the Turing Test, developed by Alan Turing, in which if you had a host and a person and then a computer, and the host asks the question without knowing which is the computer and which is the human, and both answers come, the host should not be able to tell the difference between a computer and a human. And that is the level at which AI is measured against.
By the way, is everybody really impressed with AI? You are? You shouldn't be, because AI is around there in terms of its intelligence, like 1 or 2, and we are about here. So why are we so impressed? Because I mean, you're obviously completely rocking us with science, because it's at 1 or 2 and we're at 9 or 10 in terms of our creativity, in terms of all the wonderful things we do, and we just get completely taken away by this AI stuff.
I'll tell you why we are impressed. We are impressed because, as I said earlier, computers are good at crunching numbers. So what it would take you years to process in terms of numbers, in terms of computations, would take a computer seconds or even less. So a process that is automatic, boring, repetitive, that has no human touch to it, is a process that you can easily throw at a computer, and that computer can do it in a flash of a second. And then now imagine that you have a computer, so the modern computers now today, like the supercomputers that we have and that you can rent on the cloud now, have the processing power that goes up to millions of floating point operations per second. Imagine that, if you have a platform this robust, this strong, just an internet connection away from you, imagine how much volume you can process, how many decisions you can automate. That is why we are impressed.
Final couple of questions. How do you bring about fusion of our young children, of youth, and the developing, the young minds that are being developed with AI and all of the new data and science that's coming in? How can you make that into a healthy combination going forward?
So this is an interesting question, because we've talked a lot about education throughout the interviews today. And the things that pained me more is because part of my career has been spent in academia, shaping the minds of engineers, is that the education system, other from it being stuck. And what puzzles me is that even as us as educators, and sometimes I used to take a deep hard look at myself, we tend to perform in a way where we expect everybody in our class to perform the same, to have the same set of skills, the same set of performance level, where as if we're trying to make everybody the same, and that is wrong. You don't need to memorize information. You don't.
By the way, that kid there, he says exactly the same thing, and he's 9. So he's exactly that.
You don't need. So, but if I go back years ago, when I was a student, when I was a kid, and later on, even during my graduate studies, there was a lot of importance around how much you can memorize, how much you can, apply something that has been drilled down into your brain. But that is no longer the case, because now information is just out there. All what you need to know is how you can get to that information, and how you can analyze that information, and how you can transform that into something that is meaningful for you. So the whole structure of education has to adapt to this new framework, because data is exploding, internet is exploding, everything is now at a click away. We'll have smart walls around us where you're walking into a room and everything is just around you. All these beautiful dashboards that are being developed. So now the question is not implementing something that you've memorized, but taking it to the next level.
With all of the wonderful intellect, knowledge, and experience that you have in your life, how are you going to use this to help to transform the world and take us into this exponential journey? I'm serious. What are you going to do to help change the world and transform things?
Well, it's a difficult question. So, being able to affect change in the world is not easy, because no one, and if you go back a little bit to the game theory and the dynamics of big economics, it's always very difficult for one person to make change because the cost is too high. Whereas if there's a small movement, this movement can grow exponentially at a very fast rate, because then the cost that is incurred at an individual level is much lower. So what I would say is that nobody can do anything on their own. You can try your best, but I'm just a scientist. What I would say is that within what I can do with academia, because I'm an educator and I love being an educator, what I do in business, in my professional world, with the startups that I work with the organization that I work with, what I try to do is, number one, try to raise awareness around a lot of the new topics that are coming out. Number two, try as much as possible to spread a mindset of diversity, not just in terms of gender or age or all of these things, but also in terms of background, in terms of areas of expertise, in terms of skill set and knowledge, because that's what we need, and that's where the future is.
You have been an inspiration to a lot of young girls. Would you like to share a story just to end this lovely conversation? Yes,
that's a story that I think I'll always remember until the day I die, or I don't. So a few years back, I was teaching at a nonprofit university in the south of Lebanon. It's a university that is located in a bit of a far area, and that has been set up in the hope of bringing education and higher education to these communities where girls in particular are not able to travel all the way to Beirut and commute, and because they're not allowed to live in dorms, or they're not allowed to commute 2 or 3 hours to Beirut so that they can get an education. So I had a lot of these young girls in my classes, beautiful young girls, talented young girls, and it was one of my big inspirations. It was why I used to get up in the morning, because I used to love the look on their faces when they learned something. And I remember one of those days as I was walking to my office, one of my girls in my class, I think she's barely 17, and she walks into my office, and she's clearly not comfortable, and she's clearly in pain. And I'm like, I was puzzled, and she walks in and she says, "May I have to speak to you?" And she proceeds to tell me that she didn't do well in her exam and she was worried about it. And I was like, what can I do to help you? Why didn't you do well in the exam? Is there something that I could have done better? And then she broke down in tears saying that she's getting divorced at 17. Now, that moment rocked my world to the core. Because when I was growing up and when I was a teenager, I have never ever thought about the whole marriage thing. That was never my word. I was all about education. I was all about building a future. I was a college student. So for me, the fact that I had a young girl in my class who was going through such a personal trauma and who was worried about failing her exam because of her divorce, that changed my whole perspective, and that made me take a different approach to my job as an educator. And it is no longer about just educating people. It's about giving the opportunity to every single girl out there not to be limited by the society she grows up in, not to be limited by the restrictions of her family, but to go out there and chase her dreams.
On that wonderful note, thank you very much, Dr. Nadine.
Thank
Real
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.